to you courtesy of the red, white, and blue.
Hi, hello, and welcome everybody to the inaugural episode of Deep Fried Freedom Presents Hallway Talk. I am Clay Councilman, alongside Benjamin Szilagyi, Will Paley, and Phillip Watson. Guys, how we doing?
Pretty good.
Yeah, good. Glad to finally start this.
Yeah, me too. So, all right, well, we're going to jump right into it with our first segment here is a bunch of kind of obscure headlines we've all gathered from the past week or so. And the first one I'm going to bring to the table is that the salad dressing company Hidden Valley is giving away a $35,000 bottle of their ranch dressing on Twitter to one lucky fan. The bottle is a glass bottle that is just covered in diamonds, legitimate diamonds, gold trim. Yeah, and this is a bottle of ranch dressing they are giving away. All you had to do was follow them on Twitter and retweet the tweet. And I did it. I'm taking my chances with the $35,000 bottle of ranch dressing. So I think this is just something that's really, really bizarre. And
is it limited? Like, is there only one? Are they making like two, three, or
there's
can
just
they
one.
sell them for the future?
I think there's just one.
I think that's ridiculous, but I think it's really cool that there is a bottle of ranch that like is covered in diamonds and everything. But I just find it ridiculous. It's cool that they're giving it away, but I just got to ask y'all, like, how rich would you have to be to consider even buying this $35,000 bottle of ranch? I mean, if I like, in my personal opinion, I'd have to be a billionaire and still lose. What are the odds to buy that?
Yeah, I'd have to have a lot of disposable income to be able to buy a $35,000 bottle of ranch. Even if I was a billionaire, if I was Bruce Wayne, I don't know that I would spend $35,000 on a bottle of ranch.
And that's what I find interesting. If I were to win that bottle of ranch, I don't think it would mean much, because in my mind I'm thinking, okay, it's covered in diamonds and stuff like that. It's worth something. Let's sell it. I have no use for this ranch. Is it going to sit in a trophy case? No one wants to buy it. So why exactly do I really want it?
Won't the ranch eventually go bad? Like,
Probably.
if you keep it for a couple of
Probably.
years?
Here's a question for you. Here's a question for you about the bottle of ranch. If you retweeted the tweet and followed them and you won the bottle of ranch, and you decided, this is assuming you decided to keep it, would you ever even maybe dip one French fry or carrot or something into it just to have one taste of $35,000 ranch, or would you never open it?
No.
Heck yeah. Just not just to have the taste of it, but I mean, just to say you've dipped like a carrot or a French fry in a $35,000 bottle of ranch.
To imagine a world where you get $35,000 ranch and the bottle is what I'm assuming is valuable, how would you not eat the ranch?
Right.
At a certain point, you're right, it's going to expire anyway, so do we want stinky
But if it stays sealed, it wouldn't like stink up. It might go bad, but
Well, I think like with the ranch or whatever, it would just be the same as the stuff that's inside the normal ranch.
Oh, yeah.
Like, what's the point? Might as well use it and then keep the bottle. Like, I bet the Hidden Valley is like gold line and the letters. I bet that's really cool personally.
The Hidden Valley logo is engraved onto the glass.
That's really cool.
So,
all right, so we're using the ranch. Final answer.
I think I would not. I think it would stay sealed. I would never open it, and it would go on a shelf. If I won it, I'd probably sell it because that's a lot of money. Some crazy people collect bizarre stuff. There is somebody out there that legitimately wants a limited edition bottle of ranch dressing in their collection. So I would say that I probably would keep that sealed. So next, we're going to go on to, Ben, this was your forte here. This is something you really care about, and that is, we all know the game Fortnite.
Yep.
We all play it. It just came out on mobile, and that's been really kind of exciting. I've already seen Old Row with a video of a guy playing in a restaurant. All of his friends are yelling at him like, man, hang up and hang out. And he's just sitting there playing Fortnite on his phone while they're all eating dinner. And so as we saw just this past week, the Twitch streamer Ninja had a stream in which he played Fortnite with Drake. For those of you who don't know Drake, if you somehow don't know Drake, he is a rapper and easily one of the biggest music stars right now. And Travis Scott, who is also a very famous rapper. So Ben, tell me what you got about this.
So the first thing that's really interesting here, so first, if you don't understand how Twitch works itself, so it's essentially a streaming service where people can stream themselves playing their video games online and people can watch for free, but they can also add subscriptions to it so that they can get exclusive special access to each stream and stuff like that, the minimum of which of these subscriptions costs about $5 a month. So with Ninja's new incredibly fascinating meteoric rise to power in the Twitch world, he became the most followed and the most subscribed to channel in the history of Twitch streaming. So assuming that this past month, just this month alone, the month of March, which is not even over yet, assuming that every single one of his 198,743 subscribers, assuming all of those subscribers only paid the lowest possible subscription payment, he made well over $990,000 in a month that is not even over yet.
Sitting at his desk playing a free-to-play. No, this Fortnite game is a free-to-play game that you can get on Xbox, PlayStation, Mac, PC, and now mobile. And he's making that much money. Wow, that's pretty incredible.
Yeah, it's crazy. And just this game, I can't remember the last time that a game came out and was this popular. Like, this game is everywhere. I mean, just about everybody I know plays it or has heard of it. I just joined this weekend, and I'm already addicted. I can't stop playing. It's crazy.
It's almost kind of like, it reminds me on if we're comparing it to another like form of media, and it looks like it's been around for a while now. It's been several months that it's been this popular. I don't know. Do you think that it is like a hit pop song? And do you think it has an expiration date?
If it does have an expiration date, I see it being relatively far off in the future. Because, I mean, just now, first of all, technically the reason that it's free across most platforms is because of the fact that it is still in an open beta. So it is not even completely and fully complete as far as a game goes. So they still are constantly updating it, constantly patching the game up. And so the base keeps growing and growing, especially with streamers such as Ninja, who brings on, people who have an audience of, upwards of millions of people like Drake and Travis Scott, and even sports fans are getting into the fun with Juju Smith-Schuster, who's a wide receiver for the Steelers.
Right.
He actually came and joined that stream as well that one night, and they ended up having over 4.5 million viewers on that stream that night. 4.5 million people tuned in to watch those 4 people play this video game.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's not just people playing it, but people are watching this a lot.
Yeah.
Everybody's watching people play this game. So, I mean, it probably will have an expiration date, but
something better will come along eventually.
Yeah,
probably.
But I don't see it going out like very soon at all. It's just too many people are playing it right now, and as Ben said, yeah, they're constantly updating it. They're always adding in new things, and I just don't see it slowing down anytime soon. But I mean, of course, there is going to be an expiration date on it, to where it'll lose popularity, but I just don't see it slowing down anytime soon.
Well, you got to think, like, in the last 7 days, just on Twitch alone, there's been 486 years and 243 days of watched Fortnite by 653,000 watchers.
That's a lot.
So this is a game that you can play by yourself, with your friends,
right,
or anything like that, but you'd rather watch it on Twitch to watch like a Drake and a Travis Scott and Juju Smith.
Well, that's pretty big, and you got to think about that too. This game has gotten so big to the point that it is attracting those. These are top celebrities right now, in a really good football player. But Drake is arguably the most famous musician in the world right now.
Definitely, yeah.
And for him to hop on a Twitch stream and play a video game for all those people watching, and it's good publicity for Drake. It's brilliant publicity for Ninja, and I think we see him like getting continuous success because of this, because he's going to continue. Now more people, more famous people, more notable people are going to want to come and be a part of this, because Drake's getting a bunch of good stuff for it. Travis is too.
Logic, the rapper, already wants to play with Ninja. He's already came on and said that he wants to play when Drake and Ninja play for the next time.
Right.
And those are just big guys, and it'd be insane. Like, next we know, good old Donald Trump's going to play Fortnite with Drake and Ninja.
What would Donald Trump's weapon of choice in Fortnite be?
Oh my!
He would definitely pick the purple scar. You got to go with that because it's the best gun in the game, in my opinion, through the 4 games I've played.
No, but he'd definitely be a builder. He'd be constantly building those walls.
That was a good one, Will. That's good. Hey, he probably wouldn't be able to pick up any of the weapons because I bet they were all made in China, and he wouldn't.
Oh gosh.
China. All right, so Fortnite's a big deal right now, and we all play it. Everybody at this table either plays it or has played it. And it's become a big pop culture gaming phenomenon for people our age.
I feel bad for all the girlfriends out there now, especially that it's on mobile. The guys are definitely not going to respond to their significant others.
Your honey drags you to like a chick flick romantic movie, and you're in the theater playing Fortnite on your phone.
Yeah. Yeah, they're definitely having to, deal with a little bit of attention being drawn away from them.
Right, watching The Notebook playing Fortnite. He's like, you watching? Oh, yeah. Ben, you found something rather interesting. O.J. Simpson is back in the news yet again. It seems like he's somebody over the past, over 20 years has been just a huge part of the news at pretty much every time. He just got released from prison. And especially there was a lot. He was back in the forefront of the news when that great docu-series on, wasn't it FX?
I think it was
starring,
on Fox.
Yeah,
I believe it was on Fox.
Starring Cuba Gooding Jr. and it was on, and that brought his story back into the limelight. But there's been a older interview. The interviews from the 90s.
I believe the interview was actually in 2006 when he was
06?
reflecting
Okay.
on the publishing of the book.
Right.
If I did it,
Right.
in quotation marks. And it seems like this guy can't get out of the news. And I don't know if he wants to, frankly. I mean, it's kind of like the whole Cosby thing where it's like every other week. It's like he's just constantly in the news. Like the media loves eating up these stories. And frankly, I kind of am enjoying it right now just because it's really interesting. So none of this was particularly new information because this interview was taking place in 2006. However, at the time, Fox thought it was a little too controversial to put on the air. So they hung on to it and they archived it. And then just a little while back, they actually pulled it out because they wanted to let the world see it. But essentially, it was an interview where he was being asked about how he would have done it if he did commit the alleged crimes
Allegedly.
of the double murder. So the entire time he's in the interview and he's get posed these hypothetical questions, and he says, "I remember that, I remember this," talking and constantly reminding the interviewer that it's all hypothetical.
Right.
And it's just incredible. The interviewer asks, you pulled out a knife at this point. He's like, "Oh yeah, I remember that," and it's almost like, there's no double trial. You can't really convict him. But is this a confession?
I mean, if you're asking me, it definitely looks like it. This whole interview was just creepy. It made my skin crawl because every time he'd talk about how he felt, he'd say, I felt like I got really cold and then I just got really mad, so I grabbed the knife. And then he'll stop and then he'll say, "But remember, this is hypothetical." And then he'll just bust out laughing. It's like almost as if he's like completely detached himself from the story.
It's like he was anxious.
I was reading on the Washington Post that in 1994, the time of the trial, which there is a lot of controversy because half of the country was divided. 22% of Black Americans said that he was guilty. So very small portion of the population. And then 63% of white Americans thought he was guilty. And we kind of have this thought process that now everybody agrees that O.J. did it. But in a poll in 2015, it says 57% of Black Americans think that O.J. did it. So it is the majority, but that's still not that many people. And 83% of white Americans believe it. So I've got a question do you think that this interview is enough to convince the people that still don't think he did it?
What also is interesting about, there's such a dramatic shift in between 94 and 2015 about, people are vastly more on the side of, him being guilty. But you think during that time, there's been so many different dramatizations and romanticizations of this story through media, through TV shows and documentary series. So, it's so hard for anyone to have their own clean, unbiased opinion because none of us were sitting in the courtroom. And if you've only seen the courtroom and nothing else, only seen the evidence and nothing else, then that opinion might be clean and unbiased. However, it's really hard for us to even generate a clean opinion because of the fact that we've all been exposed to various different forms of media about it.
I think the populace was also either they're more informed now than they have been back in 1994 when those people were interviewed. I bet there's a lot more information has came out. You've seen the other crimes he got convicted of even after he was set free for that. You got to hear more. You saw the interview. you learn there's been all these documentaries. I mean, just the Fox one was one of them recently, but hasn't there been like 4 or 5 of them
there's
that
been
came out in the past 20
there's
years?
been all sorts
There's
of
been
stuff.
so much
Books,
that's come out
you
on
know,
that
not-
trial.
All right, well, let's move on to our first big section here. And on this show, what we're striving to do is be a show about everything. We're going to talk about pop culture, sports, music, food, anything that we like to talk about, anything that's interesting. We're going to talk about it and hope you enjoy listening to it. So this first segment we're going to do here is going to be on pop culture, and I'm going to kick it off by so with the massive success of Black Panther, let's talk about a question I have for you, and I have very strong opinions on this as well. But we're all of us here at this table. We are nerds at heart, and we enjoy comic book movies and superheroes on the big screen. And there's been some great ones, there's no denying. We've already talked about some of them. And in y'all's opinion, are superhero / comic book movies getting better, or are they getting worse?
So personally, I want to wait until the end of May 2018 because you got Deadpool 2 coming out.
Sure.
You've got the Avengers Infinity War. That
Sure.
looks like a spectacular movie
Sure.
so far.
Huge.
Those are the big ones. Yeah, we had Justice League last year, and I know you're going to get all upset and get mad at it, say how it was one of the worst films of all time.
It was pretty bad.
But you just got to think, like, superhero movies have been on the rise with, like, box office-wise.
Sure.
They're going up, like Wonder Woman, Black
Sure.
Panther,
Sure.
even...
Justice League made a lot of money.
Yeah, it made a lot of money. It wasn't that great to you, but
It was
made
not
a
good.
lot of money.
I feel like a lot of the sales part of it in the box office has to do with its cultural impact and how it's kind of setting a new tone. But those 2 movies, Wonder Woman, Black Panther, and then I'd say Deadpool, good movies. Very
Deadpool
good
was a
movies.
great movie, absolutely.
Deadpool is probably my favorite superhero movie that's come out.
Really?
Second that.
Yeah,
Really?
I'd have to say so, yeah.
Wow.
And, yeah, but I just got to say, I feel like superhero movies are kind of just downward trending. Because you look at the Dark Knight movies.
Sure.
And I'm a big fan of the X-Men films. I don't know about y'all,
Yeah.
but I just kind of see it going down. And I've kind of almost lost interest. I've watched these movies because everybody's been talking about them, like Wonder Woman, all of that. So I've decided to watch those. But the other ones, I've just kind of lost interest because it's just slowly been going down.
So I think while there has been some films that have been letting people down, while there were these great films that we all remember loving so much, I have a point to both of those. So for the films we all remember loving so much, back in around the same time as those Dark Knight films, if anyone remembers Man of Steel, that was a film.
That movie, yes, that movie existed. That movie existed.
That one existed, and
Not much more.
that's about it.
That
You know,
movie
not
existed.
Nothing of any sort of special compared to the movies of its contemporaries. You know, we have movies coming up now that, you know, the Justice League is you know, not necessarily comparable to a lot of films that are coming out, such as Black Panther, and then, you know,
Sure.
the Avenger films.
Sure.
The big thing that I think makes it that they keep on getting better is the fact that, I mean, first of all, Disney bought Marvel. That's a huge step. So, I mean, you know, there's just so much money, so many great production teams in the works on some of the biggest names in comic book history. I would love to see them buy DC too, not going to lie. I think that would be wonderful. If they have the teams that they have with Marvel and with Lucasfilms and, you know, all that stuff, if they have those teams working on all of it, they can be producing some of the greatest, most fantastic films ever. And it's just going to keep getting better as our technology continues to increase, as our, you know, fight choreography gets better, as, you know, all these different things moving and playing are constantly growing.
Right. So, and I'm going to spring off your comment about Man of Steel real quick, because there's no secret to y'all. We're all really close friends here. I am, by all means, a DC enthusiast as to Marvel. And I can praise Marvel greatly. And I say this because Marvel, the thing that made this Marvel franchise, this Avengers series, so good is that they took their time with it. You know, Iron Man came out in 2008. So did the Incredible Hulk. That followed up with, you know, Iron Man 2 continued, and they brought the Avengers movie. The Avengers movie was fantastic, the first Avengers movie in 2012, right? And they have just taken their time. They didn't rush in. They gave each of their main 4. They decided who were going to be the big 4, and it was going to be Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, and Hulk. and they gave them their own movies, put in smaller existing characters like Samuel L. Jackson as Nick Fury. And then we had Scarlett Johansson as Black Widow, right? And in those side characters like that, then they brought them together in the Avengers movie, brought in another smaller but he became a main hero in Hawkeye. Then they started bringing in some of their lesser known characters. Like we just got this Black Panther movie, and Doctor Strange, we got Doctor Strange, Ant-Man, we got Ant-Man, and they finally brought Spider-Man into it. And and they did it in waves. They did standalone movies, and then they did the team movie. Next phase, they did standalone movies, team movie. DC put out the Superman movie with Man of Steel. Then they immediately decided they needed Batman because Man of Steel didn't do that great, wasn't received that well, and they decided, well, we can put Batman in this and it'll fix everything. I honestly think that was the thinking. And they cast Ben Affleck, which was controversial in itself. And they just rushed into that. And then they threw Wonder Woman in that movie, just out of the blue. Lex Luthor was, in my opinion, a huge misfire in that movie. And then they put out Suicide Squad.
What a film.
They put out Suicide Squad, which brought in, some great villains that we've seen, that we know about, and we've known about for our whole lives. And they, of course, the way they had Jared Leto portray the Joker.
Ruined the Joker. Is that what you mean to say?
The Joker. And that movie kind of collapsed. And in my opinion, the only good thing that came out of that movie was Will Smith as Deadshot. And Margot Robbie was good as Harley Quinn. She had the look. In my opinion, Leto did the acting wise was fine. It's just the way that they made him look was atrocious. And then they did put out the Wonder Woman movie, which was great. We love the Wonder Woman movie. We've seen it. Gal Gadot is at this point the beacon of this DC franchise.
Absolutely.
And then they just push in. At the end of Batman vs. Superman, they put in the little computer files with Flash, Aquaman, and Cyborg so they can get by giving them their own movies. And they're like, we'll do it later. We're going to rush into Justice League. And they put all these major characters together. They lose the director to very unfortunate circumstances, a family tragedy for the director, and had to change directors halfway through. Joss Whedon from the Marvel side, who did the first Avengers, came in. And we all thought, wow, maybe this would be good. And it was under 2 hours long. It was rushed. The plot did not do it. We'll talk. Batman vs. Superman's been around long enough for us to talk about spoilers. Superman dies at the end, which was not. Why?
Spoiler alert.
Why?
I thought that was a terrible movie.
Why?
Batman vs. Superman. But I definitely agree with your point about rushing the films. And I feel like that's probably a reason why I've gotten burned out, because it's movie after movie coming out, and it seems like they're not even taking a year to drop each movie. And that's one thing I'm actually scared about with the Star Wars franchise.
Okay.
Because
shift it there.
They have, Disney, they've come out with really good movies.
Right.
And I just see them pumping out all these movies. And I get why, because there's a lot of money involved. And they can make a lot of money. We all know that. And I just feel like they're going... I don't want to say it, but they could potentially mess up the Star Wars franchise, to me, just because they're rushing through everything. You already see there's a Han Solo movie coming out.
Sure. There's
a Obi-Wan movie coming out. Not to mention they're also finishing the trilogy that they're in right now, and then Rogue One came out. I'm afraid they're going to burn out.
And we talk about money. This is just real quick. The Last Jedi ended up bringing $1.3 billion. So, if we want to just briefly touch on Star Wars, The Last Jedi, I loved it personally, but that was a very controversial, and it still is. People still don't like that movie.
Definitely,
aren't happy with, and it's a little too soon. And people take Star Wars seriously, so I won't go into spoilers. But a lot of characters got a little face change. Some of the people we love from the past are very different in this movie, which I respect. I like moving on with the franchise, moving on with the development of the characters.
I think if Disney's smart, after this trilogy, they'll give it 10 years until they do the next trilogy. I know they won't because money is what matters in the world, But if they do it smart,
They're not.
they'll take an advantage of, like, just give us all a break because
Sure.
we love Star Wars enough to go and we're going to pay money to go watch
Oh,
it.
we're going to go see it, yeah.
But if they just give us a couple of years to digest it and then, like, have our own thoughts about everything, it would be nice, and then it'd be a great place to see where the franchise goes from there.
Right. And like you said, Will, we just got back in December, we got The Last Jedi, which was episode 8 in the chronological episodic Skywalker saga. And we've only had one of these anthology films so far, but coming out on Memorial Day is Solo, a Star Wars story, which is very interesting in itself, as Harrison Ford is kind of hard to replace in that role. And I'm very interested to see how this new guy's going to do. But I will say Donald Glover as Lando Calrissian does have me intrigued.
I definitely agree about seeing. I love Donald Glover's work as
Same.
an actor. He's fantastic. I'm very excited. I think that's perfect casting. I'm really excited and terrified to see how they cast Han. Because, I mean, even Harrison Ford himself in an interview, I believe it was a month or so ago, I read that he was asked, how does it feel to see, your character, your archetypal character, like your identity on screen for so much of your life. How does it feel to, like, see that being portrayed by someone else? He said he hated it.
Yeah.
He really did not like the idea. So I really hope that they live up to Harrison Ford's standards, because if it meets his standards, it's got to meet mine.
Those
right?
are high standards, though. We're talking about Harrison Ford.
As long as for the Obi-Wan film, Ian McGregor gets casted as
Yes.
Obi-Wan,
Yes.
that's the only way
sure.
I'm going to go watch it. They
Sure.
cast anyone else, I'll be like,
I'll still
I'm
consider
definitely
it,
a
but I'll
little
be
upset.
upset.
They were talking about getting Chris Pratt
yeah.
to play Obi-Wan. I heard that.
I thought he was in the running to play Indiana Jones in a reboot.
Why would they? Are they just going to replace Harrison Ford?
Now Indiana Jones 5 is coming out. That's 2020, I think, and that is Harrison. They've announced it. Steven Spielberg is going to direct it.
Well, Steven Spielberg, was he also the one that did Crystal Skull?
Yes.
So do we want a
But
fifth?
here's the deal.
Do
Well,
we want a fifth Indiana Jones?
Maybe not.
I
but
don't know.
But I will say George Lucas is not involved in this one.
Good.
Yeah, and I will
Stick
say
to
this
Star Wars, Georgie.
Yeah.
Just don't go back and mess up the original films.
Listen, does 3 films spanning from 1999 to 2006 ring a bell?
You talking about we'll talk about Star Wars later, but the
Later,
greatest
we'll do-
film in there? Yeah.
Okay.
We could talk for
And this
days
is
about the
Star
prequels.
Wars. Now this is real quickly the new Solo movie. It is confirmed that George Lucas did guest direct a scene in that movie. So there is, and I don't know which one it is. We'll probably find out after it comes out. But the Ron Howard actually took over the directing. He has a lot of directing changes for the Han Solo movie. But George Lucas is involved in that movie and is directing a singular scene. But if we talk about milking the cow, Rian Johnson, who directed The Last Jedi, has already been given a trilogy that has not a completely different story from the Skywalker saga. And then Jon Favreau, who is in Marvel, is getting a TV series on the new Disney live action on Disney's new streaming service that they're putting out. I think they're launching it next year. And then there's another pair of directors that I'm drawing a blank on their names, who are getting movies. So they've got Star Wars banked up for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, I'm just saying they're walking on some thin ice, because people are already upset with The Last Jedi, and that wasn't a huge change. And y'all were talking about replacing Han Solo with just getting a new character. They're walking on thin ice, and I can see them really just ruining the Star Wars franchise.
And we hope not, because it's something I know everybody here, we all hold very deep in our hearts, are these movies. And like I said, I enjoyed The Last Jedi. I enjoyed Rogue One. The Force Awakens, I very much enjoyed it, despite its lack of originality, really. But The Last Jedi was such a great move in a different direction. That's why I enjoyed it so much.
We'll have to do an episode just
We will
talking about
Star
Wars.
because
we
could
could get, maybe a trilogy, maybe a prequel trilogy, and then maybe a post trilogy. We could probably get 9 whole episodes.
I think so.
we could.
And I think
so.
we should in honor of this
It's
great
just-
saga.
But is it? But just to end it off, just yes or no, are we getting too much Star Wars?
Yes.
We haven't yet, but it's very probable that we will.
Because since Disney's acquisition, we've only seen 3 movies.
Yeah, I don't think we've had too much yet, but just seeing all the movies they're going to throw out there. You ask me this in a year or two, and I will say absolutely.
What we're going to do now is we're going to shift the gear a little bit out of the world of make-believe into the very real world with sports, because we're all sports enthusiasts here. And it's no secret to anybody, whether you're a sports fan or not, March Madness is upon us. And to say the least, this first weekend, this is being recorded on the Monday after the first weekend of March Madness 2018. It's been crazy.
It's been crazy.
So crazy. I can't remember another tournament that has been this crazy.
So before we get real into the things, I'm just curious, how terrible are all of your brackets? Because mine is god awful.
As soon as Virginia lost, I deleted the app. Because
He did. I was there. He did.
I didn't even want to look and see
He
how
doesn't
bad
know.
my brackets are.
Yeah, he definitely did.
The only team I got left is Villanova.
Carolina went down. That was a big one. Carolina went down.
Called it.
Yeah,
They went down by 20.
and
or
the
something.
biggest upset was obviously Virginia, who, and then another team out of the ACC, out of the Carolinas, Clemson is playing great.
Yeah, they are looking real strong.
Very well, very
Clemson
well.
is playing fantastic.
It's crazy how they just destroyed Auburn.
And I
no one
expected
expected that.
I expected that to be a very tight game. I figured they might be pretty evenly matched. But Clemson just came out of the locker room. And, we were talking about it before the show today, that Clemson can make a little run here. If they play as good as they did against Auburn, they could.
They're going to hit a wall, and they're going to hit a wall real fast. They
'cause-
play Kansas
Kansas.
They play Kansas on March 23rd, and then they got to face the winner of Duke and Syracuse just to make it out of their region.
Right.
And Duke's had their number all year.
Sure.
Not only is Duke a threat, but even in the off chance that, Syracuse actually very strongly beat Michigan State. The score doesn't reflect it, but that zone defense was enough to stop arguably one of, if not the strongest and most dominant offenses in the entire NCAA right now. Michigan State is out of the running because of Syracuse's zone defense. So if Duke loses, Clemson doesn't have an easy path if they get the upset over Kansas. Syracuse would be a huge contender as well.
And that's another huge surprise. I definitely didn't expect Syracuse to be this big, but they've really surprised me.
Can we talk about, the South region? The top 4 teams in the South have lost. Virginia lost. Arizona lost in the first round to Buffalo. Tennessee lost in the round of 32 to Loyola College. And Cincinnati got beat last night by Nevada after being up 22 points.
That comeback was nice. Yes, it was.
When's the last time you guys have seen a region in the tournament where there was a 9, a 5, an 11, and a 7 in the Sweet 16?
It's never happened.
That's insane. Where I was reading earlier, there's only 400 or just over 400 people in the world who have gotten any specific region correct in their bracket, let alone the whole bracket. There wasn't a perfect bracket after, halfway through the second day.
And, of course, Florida State, the 9 seed, beat the 1 seed Xavier.
That was crazy.
75-70 on Sunday.
They came back and won.
I know.
So
Yeah.
it was just a bad day in general for the city of Cincinnati and
was.
Xavier and Cincinnati.
It was.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Cincinnati. I saw something on Twitter earlier today that said, that meme that's popular right now of the car swerving off into the exit ramp. It said winning it, the going on was winning important games, and then the exit was blowing in at the last second, and the car was swerving off. Yeah. So that was pretty bizarre. And of course, unfortunately for young Phillip here at the table, Gonzaga did just beat your Buckeyes on Saturday, but that was a good game.
We're a football school.
Okay. so are my Tigers, but we're playing pretty good here in the tourney.
So I have a question for y'all. After seeing all these upsets, I know it's the beauty of the tournament and everybody loves to see the upsets, but are y'all really enjoying this? I saw a segment on First Take where people were talking about how they were upset that they weren't seeing the really big teams coming through. Do you really want to see a matchup between Loyola Chicago and Nevada in the Sweet 16?
So the whole point of tournament basketball, the reason it's March Madness, not March meticulously planned out and very easily executedness. That's not a thing. The whole reason that not only sports fans and specifically college basketball fans get on it, but the entire country and most of the world gets so excited about March Madness specifically is the unpredictability. I'd much rather see my Michigan State Spartans, who I had winning the championship, by the way, I'd much rather see them lose to Syracuse while we watch incredible basketball all across the board than if a one seed, pooped their way up to the final game and then won by 30 in the final. It's like, all right, cool. What fun was that at all?
Well, I think it's great personally. This makes me really happy, and this is also the same problem I have with the NBA, is that I hate seeing the same teams win every year because it's Duke and Carolina and all those, and in basketball in the NBA it's Cleveland and Golden State and the Thunder, and it's just that's what I like so much, is that this is random and it's not the same teams, and some of the teams we expected to win are falling out.
I absolutely agree. I just brought it up because I'd heard some people that were upset that they didn't like to see an 11 seed and a 7 seed meet up in the Sweet 16.
But why not?
But I know
Why not?
I enjoy it because it's nice seeing different teams win. So I have a question. What was y'all's original Final Fours, and what are your Final Fours updated now that probably half of them lost in the first round?
Well, my original Final Four had in both the two brackets I made had Virginia, Villanova. One bracket had Kansas, one bracket had Duke, and then the other brackets had Xavier and A&M coming out of the other region. And the only people that are still left are A&M, Duke, Kansas, and did I say Villanova? Yeah, Villanova. My bad. I'm sorry.
How dare you call it Villanova?
Yeah, my bad. Sorry.
My original Final Four was Cincinnati, which we know that did not happen. Michigan, that's still looking all right, possible. Purdue, which they barely got by this last game, and Kansas. So I only had one wrong in my Final Four, but I mean, I'm not too confident in those other teams that I have there.
So my original Final Four was originally Cincinnati, Michigan, Villanova, and Michigan State. And I had Michigan State winning it all over Michigan. That was tough for me. However, my new and updated bracket here, I've got Loyola Chicago, Michigan, Villanova, and I really can't choose between Duke and Syracuse after seeing UNC get clowned on, a team that was just always is neck and neck with UNC constantly. Duke has also had some big losses to some nobodies all year. So who's to say if Syracuse can, dominate defensively a team like Michigan State? I actually, you know what? I'm going to fully change it. My Final Four is Loyola Chicago, Michigan, Villanova, and Syracuse.
I'd agree on the Michigan. That's the one team I'm keeping in my updated Final Four. But after seeing Purdue barely get by, I'm taking that out. And I mean, Duke has been playing very well, but it scares me to say Duke in the Final Four because they have been at times the greatest team in college basketball and at times at the bottom. They're very inconsistent. So if they play at the top of their level, I'd say they could definitely make a run for the title. But it's just scary putting them up there. But I have them there. So I have Villanova, Michigan, Duke, and Kentucky.
And I completely agree about them being sometimes the best and sometimes the worst. I mean, no one can say Krzyzewski doesn't know how to win. I mean, if there's anyone who does know how to win in NCAA, it's arguably him. Arguably, he is the guy. However, he definitely knows how to lose. Does anyone ever remember, who was it? Was it Lehigh or was it Creighton? It was Lehigh and then Mercer. That was the other big one. I mean, these were tournament teams that we were expecting Krzyzewski to get another Final Four appearance or another, title appearance, maybe even a title win possibly. And then you lose to 13 and 14 seeds in the first round. And I really can see Duke falling off here.
So everybody here, we've raised a lot of good points on the NCAA basketball on our Final Four on the bracket. Everybody's bracket is busted. We are not alone in this. I don't think anybody saw this coming. But speaking of not seeing it coming, the NFL offseason has been incredibly random. Lots of free agency moves, lots of teams improving.
Definitely. It's just like the NBA offseason last year. It's crazy. And you can see the good teams are getting better, and some of the bad teams are getting better too. Browns.
Yeah. Go
But it's crazy seeing all these moves. So what would y'all say, which team is the most improved right now?
I'm going to go ahead and tee off my good friend Phillip with what I think could probably be almost a unanimous decision. If there's any GM who has made any sort of an argument as to what awesome stuff there is to come, it's John Dorsey, right?
Yeah.
The Browns. Let's talk Browns because that is the offseason that I've been following.
That's
I couldn't
crazy.
care less about the Browns, but I mean they're picking up huge names. They've been stockpiling for years now, just hanging on to drafts, and now he's got the wheel and he's just dishing them out left and right.
The big one, Jarvis Landry, the wide receiver from the Dolphins, is a.
Yeah, but we traded for Tyrod Taylor. He
Right.
took the Bills to the first playoffs for them in this. Is it millennia? Is that what the 2000s are? And then we improved on defense. We got better on the offensive line. The only problem is we lost our rock. Joe Thomas has officially retired from the NFL.
I know you were I walked into your room the other day and you were sitting there doing homework by yourself, listening to an interview and wearing your Joe Thomas jersey, and I knew that you had reached a great stage of grief after the retirement of Joe Thomas, one of your favorite players. I'm so sorry for your loss, Phil.
While it is hard to see a man like Joe Thomas, and I mean, he's a man of the people. The whole city loves him, and he loves the city. You should really read some of the stuff he wrote back to the city, thanking him for letting him play, letting him be a part of that awesome, experience. And as hard as it is to see him go, you've got so much talent coming in. I mean, just to list a few of the free agent hires, Chris Hubbard, Donald Stevenson, and then most notably, I'm excited about Carlos Hyde is going to be in that backfield.
Ohio State?
Tyrod Taylor. He's a hometown boy from Ohio State. They're going to love that. He's going to love being back there. And he's an incredible talent. I mean, they've got young talent in the backfield. They've got people to throw the ball to now. And if that's not enough, let's talk about the fact that they still have the number 1 and number 4 picks next year, as well as 3 second-rounders.
Yeah, I think it's hard to say any other team other than the Browns were the most improved. But I was a huge fan of all of their moves except for one. Tyrod Taylor. Great player. He's good, but it kind of puts the Browns in a weird situation because now you've got a good quarterback. I'm not going to say a great quarterback, but a good quarterback. He's definitely not a franchise quarterback. Can we all agree on that?
Somewhat.
He's not there yet, at least.
Yeah, so it's kind of almost putting the Browns in a situation where they're thinking about not drafting a quarterback in this draft, but I feel like they need to. And why would you pick up Tyrod Taylor if you're going to go ahead and use one of your top draft picks on a quarterback and not give him the experience in regular season games with a Jarvis Landry and all the great weapons that he has?
Because we just did that with Deshaun Kaiser and went 0-15 with it.
But is Deshaun Kaiser the same as Sam Darnold?
No, because Deshaun Kaiser came out too early. Brian Kelly, the Notre Dame coach, has said that, and everyone said that. But, I mean, Sam Darnold, he can't hold on to the ball to save his life. Baker Mayfield's too short. Who is it? Josh Allen, he's got accuracy problems. And Josh Rosen can't stay healthy to save his life. The good thing about Tyrod is he's I think, a 6-year pro. He's got some experience. He's played in Buffalo, so that means he's played in front of some of the toughest fans to impress, and everyone was impressed with the kid. Hopefully he could play 2 or 3 years and he'd be the leader, and that gives time for a Sam Darnold or whoever we draft first overall, because we have to, since the Jets just moved up in the draft. We got to draft one with the first overall. Hopefully that gives him time to improve so we don't have the same situation of going 0-15 with Deshaun Kaiser. 0-16.
Yeah, I gotta agree with Phillip there. I mean, as Tyrod Taylor may not be the guy for the program, but I think he is the guy for the program right now. Who else are they putting in the backfield if not Tyrod Taylor? I mean, they don't have the time to train a young guy. They don't have the time to teach a young guy the differences between the NCAA and the NFL. It's a completely different sport. They're putting a guy who has some game experience behind center and letting him do what he can with a lot of the talent. It's going to be a growing process for sure, but they've got a roster starting to form here, which is really exciting to see.
That's true. It is a short-term fix, but I understand getting a good quarterback and then drafting a quarterback, but I feel like that only really works well when you have an elite quarterback like a Phillip Rivers, a Drew Brees, a Tom Brady. So, I get he's a great addition right now and for a short-time fix, but I don't know. We'll see how it plays out.
You got to think. Teams like who is it? The Browns themselves have done this where they've tried to train quarterbacks underneath them. Look at what the Jets are about to do. They just re-signed Josh McCown and they signed Teddy Bridgewater. So that's going to give a guy that's been in the league 17 years in Josh McCown to be able to train whoever they draft. Hopefully it's Baker, so the Browns don't take him. But that would give him time to train him for a year and then make Baker your franchise quarterback that will be there for forever.
Yeah, you really got to think about the experience coming into, the coaching staffs behind these quarterback coaches and things of that nature. They don't have the time right now to pick up a young guy and make him the guy right now. Tyrod Taylor, good pick, my call.
Now, the most impressive free agent acquisition was definitely the Minnesota Vikings, getting rid of all three quarterbacks to go after Kirk Cousins
from
for
Washington.
$84 million guaranteed.
The white
first
whale.
ever fully guaranteed contract, I think, for $84 million, of course.
That's crazy.
And I mean, you got to think, he comes in with Adam Thielen, Stephon Diggs, Kyle Rudolph. The defense is still there. If Minnesota can keep that team together next year when it comes to free agents, because I think half the team is on their last year or two, if they can keep them together, they're going to be scary. They're going to be the Purple People Eater days back in the 70s.
There's no doubt that he is an upgrade over Case Keenum, but that's not the only acquisition they've had. They've got additions to their roster on both sides. They got Sheldon Richardson from the Seattle Seahawks, who is a great defensive player. They've improved on both sides of the ball. And the Minnesota Vikings on defense last year were already scary as it was. So it's hard to count them out of the Super Bowl race right now. And I'm going to throw out another name, probably one of the biggest free agents this year is Ndamukong Suh. He is a free agent now, and apparently, according to sources, he's not looking for money like he was when he signed with the Dolphins. He's looking to go to a contender. And he narrowed it down to 4 teams: the Rams, the Saints, the Titans, and the Seahawks. And I think if he decides to go to either the Saints or the Rams, which the Rams have added great players to their defense as well, I think that you can make an argument that those teams are definitely in the Super Bowl conversation for this year.
So I really want to see. I used to love Ndamukong Suh. I'm still a big Lions fan. He was back there in the good old days. I'm really excited to see him go somewhere where he can succeed. He's been constantly on the burners with a bunch of mediocre teams, my Lions included. The Dolphins weren't anything to write home about for the most part. I could see him and really like him on the defensive side of a team with an offense that I really want to see win, and that's the Saints. Drew Brees is the guy, but look at those 2 running backs, just outrageous. You got Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara, just that's my favorite backfield in the history of football, I believe.
Yeah, and the Saints have been very under the radar. They got Patrick Robertson from the Eagles. They got Demario Davis from the Jets, who's he's not a great linebacker, but he's a good linebacker. He's an upgrade for their position, and he's also very healthy for a team that had over 20 people on IR last season. And the Saints defense was not bad. They ended up ranking in the top 10, if I'm correct, out of defenses in the league. But their biggest problem was run stopping. And who better to get than Ndamukong Suh? If they get him, they've practically filled every single position that they've needed to, except for tight end, which they don't really need a tight end with all the options they have on offense with Michael Thomas, Mark Ingram, Alvin Kamara, and Drew Brees. So I'm definitely interested to see how that plays out.
I think personally the craziest acquisition that happened is the fact that Nate Soldier and all these guys are leaving New England. They're still really stacked. And if you look at all their losses and you think that they're going to be a bad team next year, boy, do you got another thing coming. They're going to be right back in contention, back in the AFC. All they did was get better on defense, got a little bit more healthier because when Hightower and all those guys went down, they'll find an offensive tackle. They'll take the veterans minimum to go out there and try to win a ring. Now, one team that I really think is slacking in this free agency are the Panthers. None of us at this table are Panthers enthusiasts, but besides Dontarie Poe, and they traded their last cornerback that they had for a receiver, they haven't done anything to me. Like, that's caught my eye, at least.
Yeah, I was just about to chime in and agree with you there. Like, I mean, you look at, we've got, lists of, off-season moves being made by all of these teams, and you see, the Browns got Tyrod, Jarvis, Demarius, Chris, Donald, Carlos, all these picks. And then, you look down, Panthers, Marty Herney has done what? Oh, he got Torrey Smith. That's it. That is all. He extended a couple contracts. Graham Gano is hanging around. Thank the good Lord.
Thank the Lord.
Graham Gano is going to carry this team to a Super Bowl, I guess.
Woohoo!
No. Julius Peppers is staying on for a couple of more years, which is really good for them. That's a good re-sign. But other than that, they've done next to nothing to improve a team that was once a contender and now seems to be the biggest bust that anyone wants to see.
Yeah, and they haven't picked up anybody on their secondary, which was the biggest struggle on that defense last year. They didn't have a problem stopping the run, but they had a big problem playing against good quarterbacks, which the NFC South is loaded with, by the way. And they've lost their cornerback, and then Kurt Coleman also went to the Saints. I didn't mention that with the signings with the Saints. But so their secondary wasn't that good to begin with. It's worse now, and they haven't done anything to fix it.
All I'm looking forward is April 26th through the 28th of 2018 for the NFL Draft. Boy, is it going to be a great time, and I can't wait to talk about it as we get closer.
See you guys then.
Yeah, it's definitely been a very interesting offseason, as we all just talked about, and we look forward to exploring where the draft takes it, because the draft is always a fun time of year. All these teams getting these new young players that they're looking to get out there. But now we're going to wrap it up here, and we're going to do this little segment called the Deep Fried Question of the Week. And just to inform you of what this is for now, Will Paley here at the table each week will come up with an obscure thinking question, and when you'll know what I mean by that when he tells it here in just a second. And let it be known that myself, Ben, and Phillip do not know what question is about to be asked, so all of these responses are right off the bat and completely random, and we hope that you'll enjoy hearing our answers, and maybe, when you hear the question, think about your own a little bit. So, Will, what you got for us?
All right, so the hypothetical, the deep-fried question of this week would be, if you could take $5 million, that's a lot of money now. That's a lot of money. You can buy a lot with $5 million.
I could buy that $35,000 bottle of ranch.
Yeah, you could buy that $35,000 bottle of ranch, definitely. Would you take $5 million if you agreed to having a snail chase you? But this snail, if it touches you, it kills you. Like that. You're done. All right? But it travels at the speed of a snail. But the catch is it never stops going, and it's always going after you. And it can travel over water. I know snails don't do that. But this snail does. Yeah. This snail gets a snail boat that goes over the ocean, if that's what you decide. A tiny little, yeah. So this
snail boat.
This snail will hunt you down. It will find you. And it will kill you. It has a very specific set of skills. So, would you take that offer?
I think, personally, I would take the $5 million just because, you got to think, it's a snail. So you would be able to go, you would be able to, retire away, and all you would have to do is just keep traveling. You just can't stop. And I think it would be a fun, eventful time. And that scare of just a snail that could be creeping up, you never know where it's at. The only thing that I wish it would have is there a balloon or a tracking system to know where it's at all times, or no?
There's nothing that you can tell different between this snail and any other snail. So you're walking on, you're just walking to work, or I don't know if people walk to work anymore.
Walking through the park.
Guess, you're walking through the park, or you're walking your dog, and you see a snail, you go, oh crap, is that the one? So you always live with that with that little scare. But also, I will tell you this: it is $5 million. It's a lot of money, but if you're traveling all the time, that money will go away at some point.
So here's my big thing. If you take, obviously I'm going to take the money. I know myself. If anyone offers me a check for $5 million, even if there is a good chance that the snail ends up catching me, I take a really long nap, snail's on top of my forehead, poof, I'm gone. Possible. Anyway, I'm gonna take the $5 million. Oh, I can outrun a snail. Sure. Here's where I'm worried. How devious and mischievous is this snail?
How smart is it?
How intelligent, how mastermindish is he? Because I see myself in France traveling with, all of my money to play and travel with. We've got, what is the name of the snail dish in France? That's
Escargot. That's all I'm gonna say is don't order escargot.
There you go. So, I'm in France. Someone offers me something. I don't know what it is. I'm like, oh, yeah, that looks delicious. I take a bite, and then I pull it back out of my mouth, and the snail's looking there smiling back at me. He goes, ha, gotcha, and I'm dead, like that.
Interesting. I think, because you got to, wow. That's a question, man. It's all if you're willing to risk it for the biscuit. That's all I'm saying.
Hey, just remember, we're not here for a long time. We're just here for a good time.
That's right.
Yep, he's right. We take the money.
$5 million is a good time.
I think I would take the money, and you got to think about it. If this is a smart snail that can if this thing can build a snail boat, then and get across.
It has a guy.
It
has a guy.
It's another snail that handles the snail boat. Okay,
Snail marina.
It's a whole snail population, but there's only this one chasing you in specific.
They're all in collusion.
They're all in collusion against you. That's interesting. I think I probably would take the money because you could. If it moves at the normal pace of a snail, you got to think about if you were in California, if we're in North Carolina right now, if we move to California, that's going to take that snail a while to get to California.
What's that, 3,000 miles?
Mm-hmm. That's a long ways. And then by the time it gets to California, you can just hop back to North Carolina.
That's
so
valid.
I think I would take that money, but there would be that fear that you never know if I might wake up and there's that snail sitting on my chest like, hi, and then I'm done.
Yeah, that's the problem too. But if you decide to go to California, you can say, okay, I have this many years. I'm not going to go through the math to know how fast it'll take it to get there. But are you really going to remember that it's that amount of years afterwards, after you've moved to California? No, you're probably going to be like, oh, I've been here for a while. I'm probably good. And then bam.
That's
You're dead.
True. Can the snail die? Just in the event, could the snail get stepped on?
No. If it gets stepped on, it kills that person.
Okay.
This snail is not to be messed with.
Okay.
No, I'm just playing. But
so a brilliant
this snail cannot
evil snail
die. It's immortal.
Okay.
Am I the only one that's picturing the snail in his head
Yeah.
and sees like little googly eyes or something? Like the
Teeth.
snail
I'm
is
seeing
looking.
teeth.
Yeah, he's looking back at you. Like I see this guy looking at me. I feel like he can
with an evil
talk.
voice.
Yeah,
like an evil like a Bond villain voice kind of deal. You know what I'm saying?
I don't know. I kind of like to. I don't know. I kind of like to picture it as this hardworking snail that's just trying to make a living killing you. You know? Why would you just make him so evil, man? Come on. Give him the benefit of the doubt.
It's interesting. That's good, Paley. That's good stuff. I like that a lot.
In Soviet Russia, snail eat you.
So I just did the math, and I hope I did this right. But I looked up the average mile per hour for a snail, and a garden snail can only go 0.03 miles per hour. And I looked up the distance between North Carolina and California, and it's 2,647. If I did this right, it would be 2,647 divided by 0.03, right? For the math geniuses in here?
I believe so.
So it would take a snail 88,233 hours to get to California. So that's equal to 3,676 days.
Okay.
Okay, let's raise the stakes a little bit. Let's say the snail walks, the snail doesn't walk. But I don't know. I'm not gonna assume this snail's actual shape, but let's say it moves a little bit faster than a snail. I'm not gonna say human walking speed, but we can just say
You're saying a mile an hour? Let's just do a mile an hour.
Yeah, we can say a mile an hour.
So if it goes a mile an hour, wrong one. I multiplied it. 246.7 divided by, let's do 24, right?
If he gets any faster,
so it'd be
the Browns might pick
110
him up.
days. It would be 110 days for a snail to make it from
North Carolina to
California. So you got 100 days of play to stay at a place.
Stakes.
Yeah.
Hey, $5 million,
I'll
$5
take
million.
it. I'll take
I'm
it.
thinking I'm taking the money. I think that's my final
I'll take
answer.
on the snail. I'll take on the snail. But that's a good question. We hope you enjoyed and maybe came up with your own answer there. All right, well that's a lot to think about, and this sure has been a lot of fun sitting around talking about all this stuff with you guys. And I'm Clay, for Ben, Will, and Phillip, we are Deep Fried Freedom, and we thank you for listening to this first episode of the Hallway Talk podcast. Take care, and we'll catch you next time.
Be out of that dress when she meet Jim West. Rough neck, so go check the